Anyway, good to have you all here. It looks like we got a good crowd for this time of year. Is Mark here to our Mark for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As usual, we start out by asking those people who are new visitors to the ECCL meetings to introduce themselves. Anybody want to do that, starting from right to left, across the way?
Good morning, my name is Kenny James. I've been a resident of Naples for about the last 25 years. I've lived in Estero for about the last 7. And I just met a couple of gentlemen. I'm a management consultant. I've been all over the world. I want to spend a lot more time locally, so I am helping out the local community. And I've been introduced to a couple of people that I think I can help and can steer me in helping the community. So it's nice to meet you.
Kenny, thanks for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Others going along here? Anybody in the back row? Or around the back here? All right, well, that's fine. You don't have to. You can be shy. The next up is the reports of the various fire districts, and I see the chief heading on up to the podium. He knows the routine.
Good morning. For those that don't know me, I'm Scott Vanderbrook. I currently serve as a fire chief for Sterol Fire Rescue. And yes, I'm in shorts today because our offices are closed on Fridays typically. And I'm going to do some volunteer work at my daughter's school after I leave here. A couple brief things from the Sterol Fire Rescue. We just, our board approved the other night our annual audit. If anybody's been into auditing, you know what kind of process it is for government auditing. I'm very happy to say that we have a second year in a row with no management comments, and we are in 100% compliance with our financial audit and our spending and how we operate in the Sterol Fire Rescue. With that being said, we're starting the budget process again. Our budget, just like the village, goes from October 1st to September 30th. The last 3 years, we've lowered our millage each year just a little bit, but we've lowered it. We'll continue to look at that as we go through our budget process and see if that's possible. One of the things that we have to be careful about, and we were talking about this briefly this morning, is that our millage is directly affected and tied to the village's millage for some of the funding they get, even though we're not part of the village. So that becomes a little bit of a process when we go through that. Some of the things that we are looking to do in the next year is that we acquired 5 acres of property, which a lot of you know out east, for the developments for Station 5. One of the things that we're in dire need of is a maintenance facility. So we will probably start moving next year with that, with the portion of the building as a maintenance facility. And then when we get roughly about 2,000 homes out east, then we'll build a working fire station. The other thing is that we're getting into hurricane season again. Seems like Irma was just here. But make sure that your hurricane plans are up to date and working. If you need any assistance, please let us know and I'll direct you to Susan. We met with Stony Brook the other day. Just updated their hurricane plan, and we're more than happy to work with the communities, and I know Susan does that on a regular basis. Also, it's dry. I've been on 4 different brush fires this week alone. We had one yesterday in our district, out Carter Road in Corkscrew. Somebody was burning that wasn't supposed to be burning, and it got out of control and almost burned their house down. We got there in time to save it, but please, for those that live in a rural setting, no burning this time of year. It's just real bad for the winds and how dry it is. We're hoping to get some rain this weekend to help that out. But for those that live in subdivisions around golf courses, you can see how far down the ponds are and how dry we are right now. So with that, I won't take up any more time, but I'd like to entertain anybody who has any questions. Yes, Mark?
Matt Caldwell had an interesting article on consolidation, and I truly understand what the issue is, and I'm a little tired of Estero kind of supporting Lee County for everything else. So should we be writing Matt, our representative there and say, hey, wake up?
No, it's a done deal now. We worked with the Board of County Commissioners, myself and Chief Canberry and the President of the Lee County Fire Chiefs. They voted 4-1 not to put it on the ballot this fall for straw poll. This comes up almost every 2 or 3 years in this county in the last 20 years that I've been here. We've done massive studies, and it shows in no way, shape, or form will it save the taxpayers money. Every consolidated effort in the state of Florida that I've researched has cost the taxpayers more money in the long run. One of the things that Estero is unique about is we have one of the lowest millage rates in the region for a fire department. And the same reason that you became a village is that we would become a donor district for the other districts that don't have the millage that we do. And the last thing we want to do is we built a top-notch Class 2 ISO fire department. We have excellent response times. We do not want to take that away from the core of what we're trying to do here in Estero, and that would exactly what happened. I was in Orange County in the late 80s, early 90s when they did consolidate, and I saw department areas that had a lot of money with ladder trucks and resources, and they shipped them to other parts of the county that didn't have those resources. But we're totally against consolidation, and not because, a lot of people out there say, oh, you're just trying to build your own kingdom. I think small government is much more efficient than large government. And so that's why you became a village. You can control your money in your area. Other questions?
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Scott. Anybody here from San Carlos?
No, Dave is not here.
Okay, thank you much. The next speaker is Councilor Jim Wilson, who's going to give us the village report. Jim, good to have you here. Thank you much.
I want to talk a little bit this morning about promises kept. The last time that I was here at ECCL, I said that the village appreciates ECCL's shared communications capability and support, and that the village promises to strengthen our news-oriented reporting on the web and by email, especially in the face of newspaper coverage at our meetings and our actions. I think that the village has lived up very well to this, and keeping our promise, we now have a subscriber list of 2,400 people that are linked via the village's email list, and we use that for e-blasts as well as posting things on the neighbors, so that I think that there's lots of information that is flowing out that wasn't necessarily flowing to the village before. And I want to say a special thank you to Marilyn Edwards, our communications specialist, who does most of the authoring on all this information that's flowing out. Back when the village was incorporated, the newly elected village council promised to be fiscally responsible, and I'm proud to report that after 3 years of municipal operations, the village has amassed large cash balances of funds. The emergency fund, the one that I call the hurricane fund, is currently at $3.5 million and budgeted over the next few years to grow and then be capped at $5.5 million. So we will have those funds in reserve if we get hit by a tornado, if we get hit by a hurricane or any other disaster. We will not be in a position where we will be hurting for money to solve whatever problems nature may bring us. The current general fund in our capital projects area consists of $15.7 million. We have gas tax restricted capital projects of almost $1 million. We have road impact fees of $3.6 million, and we have community and regional park impact fees for $1.3 million. So total funds on hand is $25 million, and $21.5 million of that is in our non-reserve and available for use. So this raises the question, and I'm asked quite often, well, if you guys have got all this money, what does the village plan to do with it? The village will be approving our capital improvement plan on July 25th. But before that, the village staff is going to hold 2 public information meetings on June 5th and June 7th in an informal environment where it will be an opportunity for those of you that have a high level of interest to actually go and meet with staff, not in the council chambers with the 3-minute clock running, but rather a give and take dialogue so that you can understand what the council has been told and what we've been working towards behind the scenes. What are we going to do with some of this money? I urge anybody who is interested to actually attend one of those sessions so that you have a good understanding of where we're going. Some of the project possibilities include one that you're probably all aware of, which is the Estero Parkway improvement project, which is currently under design. A little controversial, but under design. So, but more importantly, we are looking at the purchase of vacant land. And I think this is very important because one of the things that I'm often asked is, are you guys going to build every square inch of this village, or are we going to try to preserve some open space? So the village is looking at 5 different sites which could potentially be purchased so that we will have open space and more land under village control. You may have also read about the potential acquisition of the Seminole Gulf CSX Railroad right-of-way for Bikeway. That's a project with ongoing interest. We are at least reaching out to them to see. We don't know yet what the price tag is on that one. Some of the other parcels we actually do know what the price tag would be. Another project that probably will get done in the next year or two is the Williams Road intersection improvement over at 41, because those of you who've been in that intersection know it's a little tight and it's a prime candidate for improvement. Also, there's the investment and collaboration with the Florida state parks to enhance Corsham State Park and the Boomer property and the county-owned lands to the north of the river. The mayor and the village manager were up in Tallahassee recently and met with them, and especially as a result of all the damage that was done by Hurricane Irma, the state park department has lots of projects that they have to restore, and they appear to be very interested in having Estero participate in any kind of an enhancement of that park. I'm sorry I don't have a slide of this map, but there are, those of you who have visited the park know that Corsham is really the piece that is south of the Estero River. But north of the Estero River, there's a 26-acre parcel called the Boomer Estate, which is Nora Boomer's life estate, which ultimately will become public land. There's also a piece to the west of that, which was purchased by Florida Forever. I don't know what the size on that is, but it looks like it's 30 acres, and then there's another 40 acres north of the Boomer property, south of Broadway, that's under county control. So there's a ton of land there that if we work together both with the state and the county, we can have a really good park facility over west of US 41. We're also looking at doing, probably this budget year, some village entry signs. Every time that I come north on US 41, I look at that dinky little sign there that says, "Welcome to Estero," I feel embarrassed. But I promise that sooner or later we'll get something classy at that location and several other locations, so when you're entering Estero, you won't be embarrassed. And finally, we have a bunch of local road projects and maintenance things now that we've taken over the responsibility for lots of the village streets. We will be saving a lot of money, but we will be using private contractors and we'll be enhancing that. Looking ahead to recent council actions, on Wednesday, the council approved the Arcos Executive Center in the center, a 5-story, 66,000 square foot office building, which is at the northeast corner of Three Oaks and Corkscrew. You can kind of picture that interior parcel that runs all around behind Culver's, which includes Embassy Suites. North of that project, the council recently approved a new veterinary office, and on an interior location of that site, the village recently approved a 140-unit assisted living facility. It appears that hotels are big news lately. Further to the east of the new office building and west of the Embassy Suites is a 5-story, 100-unit Spring Hill Suites Marriott with county zoning approval that awaits construction. So that I think they're just trying to gauge market conditions. It was interesting for me, there's the hotel over on Via Coconut.
Jim. What are the 5 different sites that you're looking into?
I can't tell you because,
No name?
no, obviously, if we're trying to negotiate to purchase a site, we don't want to tell somebody in public that the village, with our large check balances, is interested in buying it. That wouldn't work to our negotiating advantage. But I think you'll be excited once this all comes out as a part of the capital improvement plan.
Jim, thank you. Oh, got
One
one more.
name from Rookery Point. The piece of land that's been for sale between Country Creek, Rookery Point, and then to the old part of town, has that ever been looked at? It's a big chunk sitting there between us and the
About
north
the
fork
10-acre
of the.
parcel that was presented to us.
It's very possible, I wasn't there. It's
Yeah,
the
There's a
north
10-acre
fork of the
parcel that
Sterol
was
River.
presented to us in a public meeting that has either the river or one of the
It
creeks
does,
running through it.
it's an estuary
So
from the river.
it's certainly in the mix, but whether or not it's something we're gonna do, I can't promise you one way or the other.
Jim, thank you very much for a very
You're welcome.
thorough, well-prepared report. At this time, we normally do announcements, and is Linda here? I don't think she is. Bob Lenish, you're gonna handle the item here that we have, and then I'll ask for any other announcements that you might have. Bob, going to present an election of a couple more board members for the ECCL. Bob?
Well, good morning. Just so you know, I'm not Linda Teco Roche. But if you get easily confused, as I do, next month I will not be here, but she will be representing me. She will be Bob. I'm glad you followed. So in any event, hopefully this will be a little bit easier. You may recall back in January, we had changed our bylaws to allow 2 new director positions. So the membership has already approved that. In the last several months, we've had 2 people fill roles in the area of health and economic outreach. In the area, and so today, we would like to discuss making those 2 chairpersons now elected officers of ECCL. So if you go back to where we were when we did the bylaws originally, we had these 8 positions in addition to the chairman. And we added these 2 positions, health and economic outreach. But at that time, we did not fill those slots. So today, we'd like to talk about filling those slots. The open director positions then are economic outreach director and health director. Now, in the last several months, since January primarily, both of these 2 gentlemen have really done an outstanding job. And all of us on the board have worked with them very closely and are very, very pleased with the job that they have done. And so the board would like to nominate for these 2 positions for economic outreach, Jim Gilmartin. Jim, would you like to stand, please, so we all recognize you?
Hi, good-looking guy right there.
No campaigning. Now, just and then for health director is Lowell Gerson, and I don't believe Lowell is here today. I don't see him, but
Traveling back.
he's traveling back from a health meeting, or in any event, he's been working very closely with his group, primarily of medical professionals, to work on the development of what are the needs in Estero for healthcare. And he's been working very closely, of course, with me as well. So the board would like to make these 2 nominations. Now, however, if there are people in this room or people that you would like to nominate from the floor, now is your opportunity to do so, for either the position of economic outreach director or health director. Is there anyone who would like to be nominated, or someone who would like to nominate someone else?
Is Mr. Gerson a physician?
Yes, he is. I can't tell you what his title is. It's so complicated. None of us can remember what it is, so maybe somebody else would.
He's not a
Oh,
physician?
he's a He's a
He's
retired
worked in healthcare for years.
emergency geriatric doctor.
Yeah, with
So
the
he's
fancy-
not looking at like infection control in the town, an outbreak of the flu?
Yes, he has a background.
The
in-
committee
That's
has
his
all
background.
kinds of people who
Okay,
have
I'm just.
different areas of
because he wants to-
expertise.
That's all right,
Yeah.
okay.
Very, very broad coverage on that committee.
Good question.
So he has a job description to do that, God forbid, we have 10,000 of our residents who get influenza, and what are we gonna do? I come from that same background, that's why I'm saying it, as health director, I like what he's gonna do about our health needs, but God forbid we get spread here, we're all gone to Publix and we all infect each other, great.
Well, I
Not
think-
impossible.
I
I
think the
think
issue,
when Alex talks in a little while, you'll learn of the
Well,
many
maybe
opportunities that you will have and everybody else will have for input on the services that will be provided here over the next couple of years.
but he will not be working for the village, and he will not be working for Lee, so it's more of an advisory.
Great, okay.
Are there any other nominations from the floor? Hearing none. All in favor of Messrs. Gilmartin and Gerson, who are elected representatives of their community, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposals? Opposed? Motion carries. Don, back to you.
Thank you, Bob. Are there anybody else have announcements that you'd like to make on different events or activities of village-wide importance? If not, then we'll move on to the next part of the agenda. Last month, we added this section where we'd like to get feedback from you about concerns that you and your community have, that hopefully everybody else here would need to know about and would want to learn about so that they could be helpful if at all possible. Are there any of you who have specific issues that have arisen in your area of Estero that you'd like to bring to our attention?
Corkscrew Woodlands. Paul Mandalero from Corkscrew Woodlands. We have an issue. Everybody's read about the devastating accident that we had out in front of our entrance. Corkscrew Woodlands and Island Club are very distinct here. We have an entrance, we do not have an exit. You can get into our place, you just can't get out. And one of the issues that we'd like to discuss, at least that, I don't know what Bill's ideas are, but we haven't talked, but we'd like to, there's a constant left-hand turning lane, U-turn, right in front of our entrance. Coming off of 75, there's such a line, you say, oh, let's cut around there, and we'll cut around to get onto 75. So right in front of our entrance, people are making U-turns. And that's messing up everybody, because across the street from us, they have the right of way before we can get out. So we don't know if they're coming into our place or they're making a U-turn, and so it balances up everybody trying to get out. Any chance that we could talk to the state or whoever about getting a no U-turn at that section? We don't know if they're gonna actually cut it off at one point, because they're doing the extension from 75 down to our entrance. So we don't know if that, we've heard rumors that there will be no turn across Corkscrew at that point. But we'd like to get a no U-turn sign there in the interim.
What the village is doing as it relates to this, I'm told, that they're planning on accelerating the installation of the traffic signal as people exit the Lowe's property, okay?
Right.
In order to provide some gaps for people trying to get out of your community. And they're, what I've heard anyway, is they hope to be able to get the county to agree to that as soon as possible so that traffic signal could be installed over the next year.
Right, well, I understand that the traffic signal's already been approved for that site
Well,
by the builder.
It has been, you know, I was involved back in the days when the zoning for that intermediate property was approved, and we put the access road through the property and that type of thing, so that you would have that opportunity to get over there and exit at that signal. And there was never any opposition from the community or from the village as it relates to that signal being there. Nonetheless, it still has to satisfy the warrants and get approved by the county.
Okay, that all being well said and everything, what about my original thing, the no U-turn? That's gonna help us.
I don't think that they're gonna do both, let's put it that way, but it's certainly worth exploring, and Bob King, our transportation director, I think is listening, and have you heard that before? Bob?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I have. And we're trying to set up a meeting with FDOT because of, you know, there's some new things happening, Don. There's starting to become more of an activity with the village. They're planning some discussion with FDOT, and I would fully expect that this issue will also be introduced at that time. But I'm not sure. I need to meet with David Willems, which I have not met with yet. I guess that's David in the back. Okay. We need to talk about those issues that are going on of interest to ECCL and the village.
And if that gets involved, because they're doing the interim improvements on the interchange.
Yes.
Which are destined to start fairly soon, so.
Okay, what I'm saying is this is
We'll
a.
deal with that later in the program.
Okay.
Other questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a representative here for, I live in residence at Coconut Point, and we just got a notice from Simon Mall, our trash pickup is normally $17,000 a year. We got a notice this year, well, next year it's gonna be $78,000. So we tried to reach out to Simon Mall, they're not replying back to us. As an association, we're pretty upset, because we all have to increase that cost in our dues. Who we go to? Is that a city fee, or? They won't tell us why. They just say that there's
a contractor.
an increase in cost for trash pickup, and it's only for 4 buildings.
Probably a contract between the owner of Coconut Point and the contractor. But let's talk about that after the meeting and see if we can't get somebody to work with you on that.
Pretty crazy.
Right? Becca Max.
Hi, I'm Gloria Beck, I'm the president of Lions Community Association, Sterol Country Club. I have a meeting with David Williams at 3 o'clock today, but we experienced massive flooding of homes, not just street, into homes, in our lowest area, Lost Creek. And we just had a engineering report done about our lake study, and one of the pieces that came up is that we abut Mullet Creek. Mullet Creek, they believe, has sediment in there and needs to be cleaned out. And I just saw on the news yesterday that South Lee County isn't gonna even try to do anything about 10 Mile Channel. So I'm sure they're not gonna listen to me about Little Mullet Creek. But that is where our floodwaters go, and we have not been included in these post-Irma flooding and FEMA maps. And I just wanted everybody to be aware of that. And then the second problem I would like to address is on 41 in front of our entrance, our main entrance. We would like to see a no left-hand turn lane there. Right now you can make a no U-turn. You can make a left, you can make a U. The people from Pine Road, which is directly opposite us, come barreling across 3 lanes of highway to get in there to make that U-turn. And we would like to have no U-turn there if possible. Thank you.
Okay. Bob, you heard.
I did.
Bob King will take a note on that. Dave Willems, I think, is your key person with the village on the flooding issues.
Yes.
And he's gonna talk about that shortly. Other questions or other suggestions and comments? It's very helpful to get that feedback, and yes, one more.
I just want you to know that Bill Carr's wife from Riverwood, passed away yesterday. Bill Carr. Bill Carr. I don't know if everyone did it.
Bill Carr passed away.
His wife did.
Oh, his wife did.
I can't catch it.
I know. Sorry to hear that. Thank you. Appreciate it.
And then, during March, I had opportunity to go before Lee Health Board, and I presented the findings from ECCL on getting an indoor warm water therapy pool and aquatic center to be part of their plans, and I was hoping that they would use some of their property, because there's a big need for that in this community. And I've been passing out petitions, and I got a whole bunch signed. I don't know if I should still continue to do that, or wait to see what they do. You know, if anybody has any suggestions.
Right. Yes, and I know that Alex is aware of your issues and concerns, and no doubt we'll be addressing them as we move ahead. Many opportunities to do that as we move ahead. Well, thank you very much for the input. That's very helpful. And I think that by mentioning those things, bringing them to our attention, then our directors who have specialized interest in their committees can hopefully take those issues up and decide how best to move ahead. Thank you very much. With that, the next item on the agenda is Dave Willems, and he's going to talk about the efforts of the village post-Irma to try to improve or diminish the impact of flooding, and to learn a lot of lessons from that, and then also been dealing with updating the FEMA maps. So I'd like to introduce our new Public Works Director, the village's new Public Works Director, Dave Willems, who's a longtime resident of South Lee County, attended Sterol High School, has a BS and a master's in engineering and environmental engineering from University of Florida, and 20 years of engineering experience prior to coming to the village recently. David, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you. I'm going to go over two presentations we did to Village Council a couple of weeks ago. I'm going to go through a little bit quicker because we want to keep it a little bit shorter here. But we'll have time for questions if I go over anything too fast at the end. So from a watershed standpoint, what we try to do is understand what areas flooded and why they flooded. And what we realized that there's a lot of water bodies, conveyances, that the homeowners associations are actually required to maintain, not the village. So what we did was all those homeowners associations that had the requirement to maintain a creek or a flowway or a ditch, we set up a couple of meetings to actually meet with those residents to make sure that they understood that they first had to maintain those waterways, and second, how to maintain them. So we had those first sets of meetings, I think in February. Not everybody in here was invited to those meetings because some communities don't have a flowway that they need to maintain. It was strictly for the communities that needed to maintain a flowway. And then I'm going to go over the work that we've done with Lee County to actually clean a lot of the flowways that are not within the communities. And then what we're working on right now to make sure that we get finished before the next rains come. So the areas that we had community meetings were, we had a meeting here, we call it the Railroad Ditch. This is up on Estero Parkway. It's all the communities that outfall through the railroad ditch. The Cascades, and they actually have a ditch that all of them need to flow through the Cascades, and then the railroad. This area flooded both in August and September. So we met with those communities, made sure they understood how to maintain it, what to maintain. The second is the north branch of the Estero River. These are the communities on the north branch that are actually required to actually maintain the river itself. The river actually runs through private property in this area. When you move downstream, it's actually not private property, public. So here, Country Creek, Rookery Point, and Village are actually required to maintain the flowway. There was a lot of debris through here, not necessarily because the communities didn't do what they were supposed to be doing, just a lot of water, a lot of wind, so there was some debris. This is the south branch. This area really didn't have, other than Corkscrew Woodlands, didn't really have as much flooding as some other areas. The river generally stayed clean. And then the last one is Halfway Creek. This is the largest one, and includes all of the brooks, includes Fountain Lakes, Marsh Landing, West Bay Club. The thing here that makes it a little bit more confusing is the watershed actually goes outside of the village. There's a section right here that actually is part of the county. So we actually have to coordinate with the landowner there that's actually not part of the village. So here, this is just some examples of some of the cleaning that we had to do after Irma. Lee County actually took care of the river itself. What they did was they came in from US 41 all the way up to Corkscrew Road and then north up to the extension of Broadway Avenue. They actually went through the river. They hired a contractor. They went in and moved all the debris from the river. And I have a few pictures here that shows what the river looked like after Irma and then what it looked like after they finished it. So you can see they cleaned it out quite a bit. You can see it was very hard for any water to flow before they cleaned it out. These are a couple of ditches that we had to clean out. These are required for us to maintain. Most of those are off of Broadway. Those are the areas that were platted before homeowners associations typically took care of that maintenance. And we have a few things that we're still working on to get completed. Three Oaks Parkway, county cleaned out most of it. They were just out there last week cleaning out the storm structures. I don't know if you were driving up there the last couple of days. They actually had a vacuum truck to pull the sediment out of those structures. They just finished that. They also finished Corkscrew Road. They went in and did the same thing, took out the debris from the drainage structures. FDOT is required to maintain this ditch. They've really completed the side that's on the part that's on the east side of I-75. This week they're supposed to clean out the part on the west side. So we should have all of that cleaned by the time we get to the rains next year. The second part is FEMA maps. We have existing, everybody has to pay flood insurance based on the FEMA maps that were established in 2008. Obviously there's been a lot of development in Estero since 2008. Because of that, FEMA was actually in the process of updating the maps. And they actually published a new map. The impact would have been a lot of areas that expanded the floodplain and actually increased the elevation. So a lot more people would have had to buy flood insurance and the rates would have been much higher. Looking at some of the flows and the elevations that they had in these maps, Lee County and the Village of Estero noticed that it was a lot higher than anything that was realistic. So what they did, Lee County paid, or the Village of Estero paid Lee County to hire a consultant to actually revise these and make it to be something that's more realistic. And so they did that, and they came up with a map that looks like this. You can tell that it looks more what you would expect a floodplain to look like. There's been areas that were filled and are no longer in the floodplain, so it would make sense that they're out of it. And you can see here, most of the areas that were left in the floodplain are the creek, the wetlands, the lakes. And you can see that the areas like Estero Place and Villa Palmaris that were filled and are no longer in the floodplain aren't in the floodplain. So the result is, you can see the middle one is what would have happened if the village in Lee County didn't update the maps. The one on the right is what is going to be implemented here in December. You can see there's a lot of people that would have had to buy flood insurance that are no longer going to have to buy flood insurance. That doesn't mean you shouldn't buy it, but if you did buy it, it's going to be at a much reduced rate than what it would have been before. This really just impacts the area generally south of Corkscrew Road and east of US 41. So it doesn't include the entire village, but it includes a big chunk of it. With that, I can answer any questions anybody might have.
I'm sorry, you said east of 41?
Yes.
So areas east of 41 are now impacted that were not before?
No. The maps were updated.
Oh, okay, thank you.
The maps were updated. There is a section of the brooks that was unmapped before, and now it's part of the map. Generally, even in the brooks where it's changed a little bit, the homes are still out of the floodplain.
I see.
Other questions?
How can we get a copy of the map, other than online?
I mean, you looking for, we can get you a PDF of it if you just email us at the village, just call the village office and give us an email address and we can send the map to
Is there
you.
any way that we could buy a hard copy of the map?
Call us at the village, I'll figure out a way to get something.
Thank you.
Back in the back, Judy?
Yeah, can we back up to the first part where you were talking about the cleanup and the
Yep.
creeks? Where is, how do I say, where is that document and who's the authority ensuring quality control on those creeks that go through the community? In other words, who's the boss of that?
Well, I mean, ultimately, the South Florida Water Management District, talking about where it goes through the actual
Yeah,
communities,
yeah.
South Florida Water Management's the
Do
one
they
that has
come out
the
and do
jurisdiction.
quality control inspection? I mean, how does one know if it's done? I was talking to a friend yesterday and we said, well, what if their development does it, but the one upstream or downstream doesn't?
What we're trying to do as much as we can, I mean, we only have a very limited staff. We're trying to do it as much as we can. For example, just to make sure that Lee County did what they said they did.
Right.
I actually kayaked through that part of the river just to see. And unfortunately what happened is since they cleaned it out, there's been actually 8 trees that fell over back into the creek. So we're actually taking that on ourselves to get taken care of. We put that out for bid, and here in the next week, we should get a bid back to remove those. So we're checking them periodically. It's also ultimately the Water Management District. As an aside, South Florida Water Management District is actually working with Lee County to have an interlocal agreement where South Florida will actually be the entity that maintains the creeks in Estero. So it's not there yet, but we're working on an agreement where ultimately the homeowners associations may no longer have to maintain it like they have in the past. The Water Management District will come up the Sterol River and Halfway Creek. Preliminarily, they said all the way to I-75, and they'll actually take care of it. We're not there yet, but hopefully here in the next couple of months, we'll be able to get that agreement signed, and some of this will change when that happens.
Does anybody look at the Estero River west of 41? I mean,
It generally did not have the problem.
well,
The
there is a
flooding-
bottleneck downstream, and
Well, but the worst flooding that we saw in the river was generally upstream of US 41. I mean, there were still problems downstream. And where the debris was is, we actually, Lee County and I also both went up the entire river. When you go downstream, there's really no area that there's debris.
well, there's that oyster dam where
Well,
it's kind of a bottleneck.
yeah,
I don't know who maintains
Well,
it.
there is no maintenance of that. We would have to actually get a permit from the state and federal government in order to take that out. That's not an easy process. That's probably a 2-year process to.
Is somebody working on that? Because
Right,
ultimately,
that's on our list. That is
Okay.
definitely on our list of things to work on.
Back in the back?
Very quickly, I'm a resident of Rapallo, talking as an individual. Thank you for the input you allowed me to have with you and questions. We're one of the communities that all water from Hertz, water from new proposed Estero is coming in, plus the new hotel flows underneath Rapallo. And it looks like that's gonna go through quickly. Could you give us an update where we are on that and how other communities that face these kind of dilemmas can address the issues?
So are you asking for an update on the hotel or?
No, the system relative to how the water's gonna flow through Apollo from the hotel, and in view of the flooding that we had this past summer, which has gone on since 2015.
I mean, the applicant is still working to address some of that. The application is not complete. It just had the first reading from a zoning standpoint at Village Council. So it still has to go through the second reading at Village Council, and then they still have to come through and get a development order, which is really where we look at more the details of what they're proposing in an application. Right now, it's just zoning, so it's really more conceptual. So there's actually several other steps that they have to get through before they'd be able to build anything on that site.
And the stormwater master plan should be.
Is your concern what is
Completed or-
existing
Well, it's gonna, the
currently?
stormwater
Yes,
master
what's coming
plan should
into
be
the
done in
community.
July, so we're hopeful that they kind of marry up from a DO standpoint.
Right, but it will provide a lot of additional information and standards for the evaluation of individual projects, right?
Yeah, well, we're gonna use the master plan for it, not only to, I mean, the main reason we're doing the master plan as a starting point is to figure out where our drainage issues are, and then come up with ways to solve those drainage issues. But as far as new developments, we're actually gonna use it that we can plug in that new development into our model and better identify if there's any adverse impacts on adjacent properties.
I just need a quick yes or no from you then. So the Estero River, the North Branch, the silt that is built up and blocked the conduit under Three Oaks Parkway at Rookery Point is the association needs to dig it out.
Well, if it's underneath the roadway, no.
No, that
That's-
came under the road and it's left a huge island in the river that's blocked and now growing grass and trees, so that the river at that
I'll have
point
to
is
look
still.
at that again.
Would you
I
please?
have, in shortening this up a little bit, that's
Yeah,
the part I
thank
didn't
you.
go over, that, they finished the drainage inlets, but Lee County is still looking at the culverts that go underneath the roadway.
Yeah.
I don't know, those residents that live south of Corkscrew Road on Three Oaks, you probably saw that Lee County had machinery out there. They were actually cleaning out that culvert in the south branch. We've asked them to do the same thing on the north branch.
I
So
need to
hopefully,
report whether we have. to-
right, so hopefully they'll be doing some of that maintenance there.
I would appreciate that.
Going back to this gentleman's question a minute ago, I thought your point was, we have flooding today in Rapallo. What's
Yes.
being done about that, number one, and number two, what's being done to prevent more flooding in the future from upstream locations
With the new developments.
with the new
Yeah,
development?
and that's what I was.
Well, but-
It's really two questions.
Well, we've had conversations before, so I probably went over something just because I know he knows it. I know that the overall owner of the Rapallo area or the system, they're submitting an application to the Water Management District to have an emergency overflow that will allow, after the water gets to a certain elevation, it's just going to discharge very quickly into the Halfway Creek watershed, the outfall.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things they're doing. But that's not the one, we're still looking at other things, especially in the Rapallo area with the applicant.
All right, thank you.
David's got to run, but David, can you add anything to what Councilman Wilson said about the CIP? Because I know that's in your jurisdiction as well. In terms of the timing, when will people first be able to participate in that process?
Well, you're gonna see it on Wednesday, this Wednesday
This
council.
coming Wednesday?
The council meeting this Wednesday, it'll just be presented, just the framework of it, it'll show all the projects, the costs, and what year we expect to do those in.
So I want everybody to know that the capital improvement plan last year was a de minimis document. It was the first year that the village had such a document, and it really didn't have a lot. It mainly focused on Sterol Park. But this one looks at all of the projects that are likely to happen over the next 20 or 30 years here in Estero. And so it's the beginning of a process where we're going to have an opportunity to have input on the priorities for the capital spending of the village looking ahead. Very, very
We're
important.
looking for two things. One, we're looking for input if there's projects that you guys think that should happen, because we based the project list that we have on the studies that have been done in the village, and then also complaints that we get from the residents at the village. But if there's things that you know are issues, safety issues, let us know, and we'll add those if they're appropriate, and then council will help us prioritize which goes first. And then you look at it, you see some things 5 years out, but you think it's critical, and that's the type of input that we're looking to get.
So Wednesday, we're going to learn about what is in that major document. And as Jim indicated, on June the 5th and the 7th, there'll be opportunities for public reaction and input.
And we're going to do one meeting during the day and one meeting in the evening, so we can try to get everybody.
So we'll be letting everybody know about those meetings and making sure that everybody has access to the information in order to be able to make judgments about what you think ought to be priority. David, thank you very,
Can I
very
just
much.
make one comment? Because we had the comment about Corkscrew Woodlands, the entrance. We know about that issue, and we've been working with the county extensively to try to figure out how to get that done quicker.
get what done quicker?
Well, the ultimate solution for that intersection is for stock development, when they build Estero Crossing, is to have a frontage road that gets added that allows the residents of Corkscrew Woodlands to go along that frontage road and then go out at a signal that'll be at the Lowe's entrance.
Right.
That's ultimately, when that happens, there will no longer be left turns allowed out of Corkscrew Woodlands. You'll be able to make a left in, but you will not be able, that whole median will be closed. So that's ultimately the solution that we're gonna have, is just,
Okay, but,
you have to get stock in.
and I don't mean this.
No, and I have actually talked to Lee County about the U-turn. We're trying,
Oh, okay.
that was one of the things that we brought up to them. They're hesitant right now to do that because their concern is it just moves the issue from Corkscrew Woodlands, it moves that issue now to Lowe's. So they have the same problem. So you're just moving it. And that's the concern. I'm not saying they won't do it eventually, but that's the concern right now, is you're just moving the issue.
Concern, coming out of Corkscrew, there's actually a whole lot of people involved. At Lowe's, there's not a lot of people involved.
I
You
think
can't
it's
get
just,
out.
well, it's people, it's just not residents, they're people that are going there to shop.
Our solution will take about a day and a half, because they gotta get a pole, pound it into the ground, fix a sign, and it's done.
Lowe's now has.
You don't have to wait for 2 months.
Works.
Right.
David, thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is a report by the EOC, and it's first Chairman Jim Gilmartin, who you just elected to be a director, and also Jim Shields. Thank you very much, Jim. Jim and Jim Show.
Jim and Jim Show. Hi, folks. How are you? I'm the newly appointed director at the EOC. White hair, good looking. And I wanted to just take some time, and we're going to do this as briefly as possible, just give you an idea of what the EOC is all about. It's a newly formed organization within the ECCL, and we think it's worthwhile just chatting with you about it. You know, we're about trying to come up with and share volunteer opportunities with the Sterol residents on how to give back to the community, how to build up their own legacy and give back to the community and contribute to the sustained growth of Estero. We hope to achieve our mission by forming strong advocacy groups with a variety of communities, residential and other. That's really what we're about, what our purpose is. What we're doing right now is focusing basically on 3 areas. For years, the area employers around here have indicated that finding quality talent has been a problem for them, for their businesses and so on. So in order to help the community, we're focusing on 3 basic initiatives: junior achievement support, I'm going to get Jim to come up and talk about that, elementary and secondary student support. We're working very closely with the Lee County Schools, and also FGCU's Institute for Entrepreneurship support, where we're going to be working basically helping them develop mentors, anybody that's in the community that's interested in working with students or trying to start a business and returning veterans that are coming back and looking to start a business in the community as well. So I'll start by inviting Jim up, or Jim can talk where he is, to talk a little bit about JA. Jim?
Sure. Junior Achievement is the world's largest organization dedicated to educating our youth, K through 12, in work readiness, financial literacy, and entrepreneurship. It has no equal. We've taken on a commitment with the Village of Estero, together with the Lee School District, board and administrative staff. ECCL will do the heavy lifting of recruiting. We need to recruit 80 dedicated, passionate people who want to go into the classroom. And this may be a Florida first. Of all the communities across the state of Florida, this may have never happened before now. That every 2nd grader, every 5th grader, every 8th grader, and every 11th grader will be engaged with a junior achievement financial literacy work readiness program. So K through 12, when your kids go to school in the Village of Estero, Free Oaks, Pine Woods Elementary, Three Oaks Middle School, Estero High School, they will have a financial literacy class. And we need to recruit 80 individuals. I can tell you that we're halfway there now. And I'm going to give a gold medal to 5 communities. They've recruited more than 50% of what we already have. There are more than 30 gated communities that belong to ECCL. This is a call to action. Get your paper and get your pencil and contact Jim Shields. And there are teachers in your communities who want to be a part of this. Every community's got it. Grandeza, Lighthouse Bay, Rapallo, West Bay, more than half of all of the 40, they get a gold medal. Bellaterra, the Preserve of Corkscrew, and Stony Brook get an honorable mention. They've done a good job. Please go back to your communities. You've got teachers that really want to be a part of this, and tell them to contact Jim Shields. We have orientation sessions. We're going to make this happen. Angela Fisher, the president and CEO, is with us this morning. Angela, thank you for being with us again. And this community is going to go into the schools, and we're going to work with the principals and the teachers, and our kids are going to understand about financial literacy. And thank you very much. Thanks, Jim.
Great job, Jim. That was good.
I have 2 minutes.
Yeah, that was good. That was really good. Better than I'm going to.
Question,
Yes.
when you said contact Jim Shields of these people, this is only for full-time residents, right? I mean,
No. Probably 1/3 of the people we've recruited already are snowbirds. And this fits, we know the time in which these people are going to be here. They're going to be here for 4 months or 6 months, and we can fit it into the curriculum and the pace of teaching at these 4 schools in Estero.
Absolutely. And by the way, at the end of this presentation, you're going to have my email address and Jim's email address if you want to get to him, okay? So the next area that we spent some time on is Lee County Schools. And the EEOC is working closely with the Sterol Councilman, Nick Dados. He's formed a joint task force between Lee County and the village, and as well as JA programs in the Estero schools. Our outreach mission, really, or purpose, includes other initiatives that are requested by Lee County District schools, administrators, and principals. So Lee County Schools is another area. While I get into this, Jim talks about volunteers. They're ambassadors for JA. We think that's really a great name that covers really what they're really all about. We're looking for volunteer ambassadors. We're looking for volunteers in all of these areas. And again, we'll leave you with some information about how you can reach out to us if you have an interest or you know someone else that has an interest of getting involved and giving back to the community. The Institute for Entrepreneurship is a very interesting place. The Florida Gulf Coast University has established this organization within their organization to help students who are interested in getting together with a lot of good people like you who can help them develop businesses, typically small businesses. And it's very successful. Many of them have won awards already. These kids have competed and done really, really great, but they need mentors and so on. We're in the process of working that deal out with them. We know some people, maybe some of you in this room have indicated to us that you are interested in mentoring with them, and we will get back to you as soon as we can get it really working well so that the expectations are met. That's going to be happening as soon as possible. That's it on EEOC specifically. What I'd like to talk about is a new organization that was just established by the board called the Marketing Advisory Committee. It is the ECCL's Marketing Advisory Committee. And the reason for some of this is basically that we have to engage in the marketing function to help ECCL really accomplish a couple of goals. One is to increase ECCL's value enhancement in the Estero community, and the other is effective management of future opportunities and reducing risks or loss of opportunities which marketing might affect. Candidly, what this really boils down to is that we need to start to develop a variety of different ways, both traditional and digital, to tell ECCL's story. It's a great story. It's been around for quite some time now. Don and the people that work with Don over the years have done just terrific things for the Village of Estero. we've got to get that message out because we've got to get more people to understand what it's all about. And part of that is not just the Marketing Advisory Committee and some of the players on it, I'll share in a minute, but it's you folks. You folks that are representatives in your communities, the more you understand about this, the more you get the message out and you communicate what the ECCL is all about, every opportunity you can take, the better our chances of creating an ECCL's position in Estero as being an organization that's there that advocates for us, the average person in the community. It supports the village's activities, but it's there also to listen to you just as we did this morning. So please keep that in mind. It isn't just the ECCL's organization at the top. It's got to be all of us out there in the communities as well. The people that are going to be involved in this are folks that have been involved with marketing and communications for quite some time now, at least a year or two. And it boils down to Kim Daly, who really handles our website and does all of the email blasts. Stephanie English is from West Bay community, has a tremendous background in advertising and communication. Don, for all the insight he's got and the experience he's got, has to be involved in this. Myself, Tom McDonald, who is the CEO of Evolution Brands. That's the marketing communication company that we've engaged to help us make all this happen. And then, of course, Jim Shields as well, who's had some significant experience with that. We are seeking several other experienced people. If you know of or yourself has a marketing background, both in the traditional and the digital side, if possible, and you're interested in joining us to sit in a position where we advise and counsel our communications company that's working with us on how we can develop campaigns, small and large, to get the message out as to what we're all about, please contact us. I'll put it up here. There's our email addresses of both Jim and I. So we're looking for people for the what we'll call the MAC, Marketing Advisory Committee. We're also, again, looking for other experienced residents, professionals, business people, etc., to work with us on the EEOC steering committee. We've got about 4 or 5 people that work now. We'd like to bring it up to maybe 7 or 8 people that have an interest in developing the kinds of activities that we're doing now and perhaps others in the future as it becomes clear there's a need for. So on that note, any questions?
Questions or comments?
Yeah, I just comment that Kenny James from Stony Brook, and he learned about this, and he stepped up to the plate, and he is a part of this. He is very representative of people like Mark Nowitzki who really want to make contributions, and we're looking for more people with that kind of dedication to really step up and help out. It's a great opportunity.
It is. Thanks. Okay. Thanks, folks.
Thank you, Jim, and Jim, for the diligent work that you've done in this area. There's no question, but this EOC has really taken off with your leadership and hard work. With that, I'd like to call on Alex Greenwood, the CEO of the new Lee Health Coconut Point facility. And Alex is going to talk about 2 things. One of them is the focus on the recruitment of quality staff for this facility. He's going to be hiring 220 people between now and the fall. And then also the specific information that was in the application for the certificate of need for the hospital, with the tremendous focus on healthy aging. We have 36% of the total population of the service area for this new hospital should be approved, over 65. And in the next 5 years, the proportion, the growth in the over 75 age bracket is going to grow 43%. And those of you who are elderly like I am know how important this is. But I think when people think about hospitals, they think of them generically. This is not your ordinary hospital. And with that, Alex Greenwood. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time again today on your agenda. First, with regard to staffing, I wanted to talk specifically about our physician plan. Some of you, first of all, thank you for helping us get into your communities. You've heard the multiple presentations from folks from our Healthy Life Center, myself, Suzanne Braddock is still doing a few, so we appreciate that. But we wanted to start to get kind of micro and detailed about our physician plan. The model in this community for health services in general, but especially for physicians, was really developed 10 or 12 years ago when the demand was very different. Population was a little younger, and there were fewer people here for sure. And basically what happened is there were multiple locations designed where physicians from larger practices were coming in, covering a day, and then going back to Fort Myers or back to Naples, and then another specialty would come in the next day. Some of that is still going on, and that's just not serving the need, which is why we have the challenge here for access to care, along with the growth in population. And that's also why you have multiple organizations, health organizations, trying to get into this community and serve it. Obviously, we believe we've been a partner for a long time, and we believe that our coordinated care model, that I'm going to explain to you in a few minutes, is the solution. But in addition to that, the solution in the short term is going to be Lee Health Coconut Point and our staffing plan around that. So currently at the Benita Community Health Center, we have three now. Two started in the past couple weeks. We have 3 primary care physicians with room on their schedules to take new patients. And this is the plan as we move forward. We have 3 physicians currently seeing new patients at Benita Community Health Center. They will be transferring with their teams. At least 50% of their teams are new as well at Benita Community Health Center. So a lot of turnover there recently, and we're getting that stabilized, and we believe providing a better service to the community. 3 more physicians are being vetted. One of those is actually finalized. The other 2 are in the final steps, and they will start by the fall of this year. Prior to opening, they'll be working at Benita Community Health Center as well, getting familiar with the community, and they will have completely open patient lists the day they start. And we have 3 more vacancies planned in primary care over the next year as volume dictates. So as those patient lists and those panels fill up for those physicians, we already have approved 3 more primary care physicians, and we're already recruiting for those as well. We will have a general surgeon in the primary care clinic at Lee Health Coconut Point. He will have clinic time. He will have time at probably Gulf Coast for inpatient surgeries, and he will also have time in the OR at Lee Health Coconut Point, at least a day or whatever he or she needs. It's actually a gentleman, and I can't remember his name right now, but he'll be starting this fall as well. Cardiologist is Dr. Hughes. He started April 15th. He continues to get familiar with the community. He will be our full-time cardiologist at Lee Health Coconut Point, and he will also have support from cardiologists from our group rotating in and out through the week as volume dictates. Last year we hired 2 orthopedists. They are currently working at Benita Community Health Center, and they're spending some time in Fort Myers as well. Dr. Harmon is our joint replacement surgeon, and Dr. Chris Meyer is our upper extremity. They are young from outstanding programs. Their outcomes are among the best in the nation, honestly, and they are go-getters and good partners. I've known them for a long time, actually. And we have 1, Dr. Cesar, starts in October. Vanderbilt is a leader nationally in orthopedics. They have 2 fellows per year in orthopedic trauma and fractures. And Dr. Cesar is one of those fellows this year, and he actually reached out to us, and we did not recruit him. He heard about things that we're doing here with our orthopedics program, and things specifically we're doing in South Lee, and with population health, which I'm about to talk about in a minute, and he wanted to come here. So those are the kind of applicants we're getting. He starts in October. OBGYN will have 2 physicians full-time in the clinic, also working in the for GYN cases, working in the outpatient surgery center, and we'll have some time up at Gulf Coast as well. And 2 clinical nurse midwives will be working in the clinic with those physicians. So that's our physician plan. That basically triples the physician coverage for us in most cases, and opens up a lot of space for patients, community individuals to get time with physicians. So next I wanted to talk about what Don spoke about a little bit, this idea of promoting healthy aging at the Health Cookout Point. And I want to talk about Dr. Gerson for a second, that we talked about earlier. So Dr. Gerson is an emergency physician. He is published. I don't know if you looked him up, but it's really impressive. The American Society of Emergency Physicians he belonged to for a long time, was an officer at one point. He has published many articles with them and other organizations actually around this idea of geriatric ER medicine. Really a pioneer of that. And the day I met him, actually before I met him via email, he started sending me articles and evidence around this idea of geriatric medicine and how this area is a prime candidate for that type of program. So over time, through the Health Council and through other members of the community with a health background and some consultants that we use as we prepared CON, we've really kind of made that one of our differentiators. I believe, having been here a few months now, I believe we have some gems in this community. One is Healthy Life Center. I think our orthopedics program is one. I think our cardiology program out of Health Park is another gem for the community. And I believe that this idea of healthy aging and this care management model around it will be another gem for this community. So we'll talk about that a little bit. Here's some more statistics consistent with what Don talked about. There's an 18% growth rate in the senior population over the next 5 years. These are national statistics. The growth rate here is actually double that. By 2023, 40% of residents will be over to the age of 65. 86% currently today, 86% of healthcare costs are attributable to chronic conditions. Those include heart failure, diabetes, high blood pressure, etc. 25% of those Medicare patients have 4 or more chronic conditions, and 93% of Medicare spending is on those chronic conditions. And really we're just spinning our wheels because the models around prevention and wellness are not coordinated and integrated, which is what we're going to do here. So just a quick overview. Current state, kind of the way it works, as you guys know, is the captain of the ship is your primary care physician. As a patient presents to that individual, it's really very predictable, right? Based on lifestyle, based on age, what type of interventions they need and what type of prevention they need. That physician, as you begin to present in current state with an issue, high blood pressure, diabetes, sleep apnea, whatever it may be, you will be referred to a specialist who has a panel of many, many patients. And then you may present with chest pain or some cardiac issues, and you get referred to a cardiologist. And that coordinated care around that is very fragmented currently, as you know. And eventually, you go to a hospital for the intervention, the surgery, the catheter, whatever it may be, catheterization, whatever it may be. What we are proposing, and what we have learned from Dr. Gerson, from the American Society of Emergency Physicians, from New York University, from Johns Hopkins, from Duke, and some other national organizations, and we continue those conversations, is we need to take a care management model into the community based on the individual's risk, lifestyle, and really what they want to accomplish. Assess that risk and provide them a resource, multiple resources actually, a care team with a co-captain. That co-captain could be a nurse in some models, could be a social worker. There are physicians in our plan, there are physicians that will go to the home as well. And really putting you as the captain of your health and wellness plan, helping you stay independent for as long as possible, and giving you access and ownership of that care team, and keeping that whole care team consistent, coordinated, educated, etc. So here are some of the things at a very high level that we're talking about. Specialized in primary care for older adults. A comprehensive geriatric assessment is really how you initiate the program. Medicine reconciliation services. Each of these chronic conditions, again, a high percentage of individuals in the Medicare rolls have 4 or more chronic conditions. Each of those comes with treatment. Each of those comes with medication. We're going to kick off a medication reconciliation service to help individuals in the community prevent drug interactions, keep track of those medicines, make sure there's no interactions, make sure that the same medications that you are on when you enter a facility, you are either on those same medications when you leave, or those are being replaced and complement what you were diagnosed with and treated for in the hospital, so that older individuals aren't at home trying to figure all that out on their own. Aging body education services and treatment. Education services and treatment around diabetes, COPD, which is chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, morbid obesity, multiple sclerosis, osteoporosis, high cholesterol, heart failure, etc. So really, it's a model around coordinated care in the home, in the community, with really the hub being Lee Health Coconut Point. These teams will work together, multiple specialists, multiple advanced providers that would include ARNPs, PAs, etc. Geriatricians, which we really don't have in this community, if you can believe that, when we bring in some of those to the community. Memory care, cardiology, neurology, pain management, rehabilitation, medicine, and nutrition. Additional services that will be provided, house calls after surgery or intervention to include geriatricians coming to the home. Again, focus on keeping the community healthy and independent. Internal medicine physicians going to the home. And really the care manager, who is an RN or a social worker, will be key and will be the contact point for the citizen or the patient. So as you have a concern, as you need an appointment, as you need an intervention, as you have chest pain or whatever it may be, that is the individual that you call. They know you, they know your name, they know your condition, they know what you want to accomplish, and they help you coordinate and navigate how to get you to the right place at the right time, at the right cost. Memory disorders for all stages of Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, etc. Senior Care Choices Program. This program will be the only aging life care management program in Lee County, and that's really what we're talking about. We will have nationally certified aging life care professionals, just like New York University, Johns Hopkins has today. It will include a comprehensive geriatric assessment. A care plan will be developed. Included in that care plan will be health, wellness, prevention, and scheduled appointments to help manage the care, and education around what the treatment will be if an intervention is required. Coordinate and oversee the care plan with the patient taking the ownership and having, again, their co-captain. That will be coordinated and overseen by the health system. This program, the Senior Care Choices Program, will investigate benefits of other services, offer options and education for the family and the patient on home health, assisted living. Again, it's very predictable. It's not something that should be a surprise to anyone. That should all be talked about, laid out, prevented, put off as long as possible based on prevention and wellness. This program with the social worker and the RNs will arrange these in-home services and coordinate all of that. Coordinate delivery of medicines, meals, medical equipment, emergency response systems, and facilitate communication to the family. This Senior Care Choices Program, the objective of it is to keep the patient in the home, independent as long as possible, and it is perfect for individuals who live down here, seniors who live down here and have family elsewhere. This program will allow the family to stay involved, keep that communication going with the social worker and the family member, etc. Other services that will be part of this, holistic and integrative therapies. Health and wellness involves the mind and body together. So the overall focus of holistic and integrative therapies will be symptom management, enhancement of function, promotion of physical and psychological comfort, as well as psychosocial, spiritual, and emotional support for parents and their families. geriatric emergency medicine. If Dr. Durson was here, he could stand up here and take this from me, but it's really about being a senior-friendly emergency department, making sure that they are ASEP, American Society of Emergency Physicians Certified on Aging, and also there's another one called NICH, which we will also have that certification, which is all about age-based competencies, relationship management in the ER, and again, knowing what seniors need specifically, what they respond to specifically, what challenges they have specifically, and educating the whole team on how to communicate better and provide care in a way that seniors respond to. Additional benefits tailored to seniors, perioperative optimization. We will have this actually by January of 2019. The idea behind that is, those of you who are health professionals remember 20 years ago, there was a very robust preoperative assessment, health assessment, that captured all of your chronic conditions and kind of where you are current state, and then maximized each of those chronic conditions prior to the surgery. If you do that right, you take post-operative complications almost to zero, honestly. So nationally, as you see these post-operative complications around blood clots, infections, osteoporosis and fractures that come from osteoporosis, all of those things can be optimized preoperatively, and those complications basically taken to 0%. Health information technology, we are already committed to a lot of that, and this is beyond our electronic medical record. It's around telemedicine, having relationships and communication between Lee Health Coconut Point and specialists in the community and beyond via technology. Complex Care Center, we've already kicked that off at Lee Memorial Hospital. It's going to be another gem, another really program that I think we will be recognized nationally. And that is about patients who don't have primary care, patients who are already discharged from the hospital post-surgery or post-medical condition, who are having complications and don't know where to go, don't know how to navigate the health system, aren't educated on kind of the organizational barriers that there are in the health community. And this is a one-stop shop where they can go, or we can go pick them up, manage those conditions, keep them from being a readmission, keep them from being an admission at all, help them again with their medication reconciliation, et cetera, and then provide services to their home to get them well. And those are the types of things that we are now going to be incentivized to provide, as opposed to being paid by insurers on every touch point or every surgery or every intervention. We are the value-based reimbursement models that we're working on currently around our accountable care organization with Medicare that has already kicked off, and I think we have 20,000 lives in that already, and it's growing like crazy. We are now being incentivized to keep patients healthy, keep them out of the hospital, reduce interventions, et cetera, which is a completely different way of, and really what this is all about. Cognitive Health Center for Aging Adults, really no resources in this community from a behavioral standpoint for seniors specifically. We will have that, already starting that in some locations as well. That's a lot of information. That's the first time I've given that presentation, and it's going to be added in certain ways to the presentations that we're giving in the gated communities. You're going to hear a lot more about it, but I wanted to offer opportunity for questions.
Question? Alex?
Yes.
You've mentioned that the primary care physician is the captain of the ship.
Yes.
In your first slide, you showed that you're recruiting for 3 new physicians.
Yep.
Just an observation, retention is a good way to recruit, obviously. You just lost 2 primary care physicians. The question is, I understand you're going to be staffing with temporary or travelers, people who might be here for 3 months and then moving on.
Correct.
Is that a long-term strategy, just a short-term strategy?
That's a short-term strategy to get us through this summer. I've met both of those physicians. I think they're outstanding individuals. I think they were good selections. We always have the opportunity to keep them permanently if they choose to stay, and that's a decision that we would make as an organization and they would make as individuals. So I can't tell you how long they will be here. These 3 physicians that I talked about are permanent positions recruited specifically for this community that will start by September, October timeframe, in addition to those two.
Okay, thank you.
But they could be, the plan currently is for them to move on at that point, but they could be offered opportunities in the community as well. Yes, ma'am.
As you know, the health committee was very concerned about the quality of physicians being hired.
Yep.
And what can you tell us about the quality of physicians being hired? And can you get us the CVs or the background information to Lowell or somebody else so we know who you're hiring?
So the health committee specifically will be getting a presentation next Friday. Yes, next Friday the 18th, from our health executives that run the physician group. And part of that presentation will be around the types of candidates we're getting, how we are recruiting, who we're looking for, this whole idea of wanting these positions to be part of this community, like-minded individuals, like-minded with the community and with us as well. So that'll be next week. Yes, ma'am.
Will you have infectious disease and wound management care capability at that facility?
We will. Complex Care Center will definitely have wound care capability, rotating in and out probably at least 2 days a week. And we have agreements with the wound therapy on Daniels, our plantation off of Daniels on Fort Myers as well. That'll be the staff and the team that will be supporting us here.
And infectious disease capability will be out of there as well?
Absolutely.
Is that a rotating
Absolutely.
assignment?
Infectious disease, we will have one. I don't know that we will have one by opening, but we will have one probably in the first quarter of next year.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
You plan on having a hyperbaric chamber then?
We will not have a hyperbaric chamber the day we open. We won't have a hyperbaric chamber for a while, but the one at Daniels has capacity. For sure. Yeah, that's who we're working on.
I would suggest to community representatives here, if you haven't had Alex at your place to speak, by all means do it. We had him speak at Lighthouse Bay. It was standing room only, 142 people, and all the questions were asked and answered. So get him out to
Let's go on
your
paper, I'll
places.
tell you that. Thank you.
There's a lot of people who don't know that need to know. That's exactly what I said.
Very, very important, Irv, and anybody who wants to do that, let me know, or let Alex know, directly, any of us in the leadership team, we'd be happy to make the necessary arrangements. Alex, I think I overloaded your assignment today, but you did a great job, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is a little bit of information about our Sterol school. And Chris Patricca is back here again. I, for one, having been a resident here about 15 or 18 years now, still until recent times, never really, because you're a senior and all that kind of stuff, really never took a lot of interest in what was going on in the schools. Until Hertz came to town a couple years ago. And so many of the families decided they were gonna go to Collier County, rather than living here in Lee County. And it was mainly a school issue. And so that kind of raised the red flag that we really need to be more engaged with our schools. And fortunately, right now, 3 of the 7 school board members in Lee County come from Benita and Estero, 2 from Estero. And Chris Patricca is one of them. She's been here many times before. She'll be here many times again because she is vitally interested in us and in our schools. Has 3 children, and one of the 4 schools she's going to talk about. But I asked her today, just tell us a little bit about the schools that serve Estero and the challenges that they face and the success they're enjoying. So with that, Chris, appreciate your being here.
Thank you. Good morning. Is it morning? Good morning. I'm sorry I'm late. I was at a workshop down at the district, so thank you for putting me later on the agenda. I'm going to start with the 2 schools that are not located inside the Village of Estero. That is 3 Oaks Elementary School and 3 Oaks Middle School. They're not located in village boundaries, but they do serve Estero students, and they are included in the memorandum of understanding that we just entered into with the Village of Estero in terms of, partnering with the village. So I'll start with Three Oaks Elementary School. Three Oaks is an elementary school, obviously, serving pre-K through 5th grade students. Some of the unique things that are happening there are, first of all, the principal, Jody Moorhead, is phenomenal. You're gonna hear me say that about all 4 principals in Estero, because they really are great. The leader in the building is really what dictates everything that happens in that building. So if you're a great leader, you're gonna draw great teachers into that building, and we have fantastic teachers at Three Oaks Elementary School. They have a choir that gives at least 2 concerts a year, and that choir teacher has also put together plays, so the students are giving plays. They have a very, very active Rotary Club at Three Oaks Elementary School. I was over there recently for a threat assessment. I walked through the campus with our, one of the people that works in safety and security down at the district to identify potential issues, areas where the school needs to be hardened from an infrastructure perspective. And one of the things that stood out for me is in the front of the school, there are portables. You all have driven by that school, right? You've seen all those portables at the front of the school. The entire 3rd grade class is housed in portables. There is not enough room on the campus in the buildings that exist for us to put all of our students. So the temporary fix for making those portables more safe is they put a fence up in front of the portables, and they put slats in the fence so that people can't drive by and see when the students are walking in and out. Understand there are a couple of problems associated with using portables to house students on campuses. The first is, from a safety and security perspective, hardening of the schools. They're not as safe as regular infrastructure is. But the thing you don't typically think about is the fact that students have to be evacuated from those portables when we have a tornado warning or a major thunderstorm. How often do we have major thunderstorms in this part of Florida, right? Quite frequently. And 3rd graders, that is the first year they're tested. So that is repeated interruptions in the learning day for those students. And it's really just not sustainable, not to mention that from a financial perspective, it's a bad investment. Putting money into portables is a bad investment. I started my morning at Three Oaks Middle School, also known as TOMS. They had their presidential award ceremony this morning, where more than 150 students received some kind of a certificate for having between this is 8th graders, for having between a 3.0 GPA and a 4.0 GPA as they move on to high school. It was phenomenal. I mean, the kids were great. They, standing on the stage with their big smiles, they were very proud. But what I noticed about the staff was that principal knew every single kid that walked onto that stage. That principal knew the name of every single kid that walked onto that stage. You guys at this point have a feel for how big we are, right? As a district, we have huge schools. We have 94,000 students. And for the principal to be able to identify the name of every single person that walked on that stage, to me, was truly outstanding. Three Oaks Middle has a full-time gifted program. So students who are identified as gifted go there. They learn the same curriculum, but they take a deeper dive into the curriculum. So typically a gifted student is able to master standards more quickly than a general education student would. So what we do is we teach them the material more deeply through projects and field trips and that kind of thing. And so there is a full-time gifted program at Three Oaks Middle. Three Oaks Middle offers interesting electives like coding and robotics and culinary. They have culinary there as well. My son will be going to Three Oaks, my youngest son will be going to Three Oaks next year, and robotics and culinary are the reasons why he chose that. I mean, he knows how to make a peanut butter and Nutella sandwich, so I don't know why he wants to go for culinary, but that's what he's excited about. The campus itself, the physical facility, is in decent shape. It's very similar to the setup we have over at Pinewoods with the outdoor hallways. Unfortunately, it is overcrowded. It is very much overcrowded. And what we have there is we have teachers on carts. So you have teachers who don't have classrooms. Their teaching materials are on a cart, and they have to push that cart from one classroom to another. And that's hard, you know, especially, I'm not even going to say especially elementary and middle, because my sister was a high school history teacher, setting up that classroom at the beginning of the year and taking ownership of that room and having a sense of being able to welcome students into a learning environment that fits whatever it is you're teaching is really, really important. And that's something we're denying our teachers and our students by having schools that are overcrowded at this point. So the next one I'm going to turn to is Pinewoods Elementary School. Can you all keep a secret? Seriously, can you keep a secret? No. You can't tell my youngest son because he's still there. He's in 5th grade. The mascot at Pinewoods Elementary School is the eagle. I'm the person inside the mascot. I swear to you, in August when we have that back to school event, all that fur, I lose 5 pounds in water weight. I swear, it's so hot inside that costume, it's ridiculous. And my other 2 kids know that I'm that, but since my son is still in elementary school, we haven't told him. He doesn't know who's in there. Pinewoods, the reason why I bring up the mascot first is because that's Pinewoods. Pinewoods is all about the kids. Pinewoods is a phenomenal place. The principal, Leslie Gunderson, is one of the best leaders I've seen in any organization ever. The teachers are phenomenal. They have a full-time gifted program as well. And I'm most familiar with that program, so I'll tell you how it works. In 2nd grade, before 2nd grade, students are identified as being potentially gifted. So they go through a series of testing to include psychological and academic testing. And if they have recommendations from their teachers and they get certain scores on these tests, they will be considered for either full-time gifted or part-time gifted. We have 1 full-time gifted classroom at each of the grade levels, grades 2 through 5. And we also have a part-time gifted program where if a student doesn't qualify with the test scores needed, they're pulled out of their regular classroom once a week and they go into the the part-time gifted classroom. And again, there they take a deeper dive into the materials they're learning on a regular basis. And they get to learn in a different way. Gifted kids have unique learning needs. You know, frequently you will see in a gifted classroom a student that also has severe behavioral problems. And so it's important to have a certified gifted teacher in that classroom so that that teacher can figure out how to work with each individual student's unique learning needs. The other thing that they have at Pinewoods that's really, really awesome is the village concept. Do we love it? The village. We have villages within the village. So at each grade level, they combine classrooms. So you have students with special needs. Literally, the wall between the classrooms has been taken down where you're physically able to do that. The wall between the classrooms is taken down. 2 classrooms are combined. So you have some special needs students in with general education students. You have 3 teachers and at least 1 paraprofessional. So the teacher to student ratio is very, very small. And it's what we have seen out of that concept of having more teachers in the classroom is increased educational benefits for all students in the classroom, decreased behavioral issues for not just the special needs students, but all students. And we're finding that students come out of those classrooms with a greater sense of empathy and ability to relate to others who aren't exactly like them. Now, when parents initially find out that their student is being placed in a village, frequently they're concerned. But give them a week or 2 in that classroom and parents are glowing and raving about the educational experience that those kids have in that classroom. This was a model that was created by Leslie Gunderson over at Pinewoods, and we have people across the district visiting Pinewoods all the time to learn how they can implement it in their schools as well. It's really a fantastic program. Pinewoods has a chess club. And this is my last year at Pinewoods. This is the last year I have an elementary school kid, so I get a little bit of a lump in my throat when I think about the end of the school year moving on ceremony. I just don't know how I'm gonna not have that be a part of my everyday life anymore. So that's Pinewoods, and the last school I'll talk about is Estero High School. Have you all met Principal Clayton Simmons? There is nobody, I don't think, who loves his school more than Clayton Simmons loves his school. He is the biggest cheerleader you will meet for anything Estero. The man absolutely loves Estero High School. Estero has some fantastic educational programs. They have a construction services program. They have a CNA program, so Certified Nursing Assistant, right? That's what CNA stands for. So the CNA program is great for students who want to hit the ground running as a CNA when they graduate from high school. But it's also great for students who want to perhaps seek higher education in medicine to become doctors, because you can get your phlebotomy certification and your CNA certification when you graduate from Estero High School. So that means that if a kid's gonna go to college and do pre-med, during the summer they can work as a phlebotomist, or during the summer they can work as a CNA. So this allows those students to work in the field they've chosen while they're getting their college degree. It's a super fantastic opportunity. The other thing they have over there is general hospitality to include culinary. Have any of you been to the culinary fundraiser at Shadowwood? Isn't that thing awesome? It's really amazing. The kids, the students in that program put out a beautiful meal and raise really a lot of money for the program. The teacher over there, Mr. Jasper, is fantastic, completely devoted to helping those kids. And that's an important industry in Southwest Florida, right? You need good restaurants with really high level food coming out of those restaurants and kids who take it seriously. And we have that in that program at Estero. The other program that I want to talk about is the Cambridge program. Have you all heard of that? So the Cambridge program is a highly rigorous program. If you graduate from Estero High School with a Cambridge degree, it is recognized internationally as a rigorous program, and it gives you a leg up in the college application process. This year, the year we're in right now, the highest number of students ever in the history of Estero High School will graduate with a Cambridge diploma. And this year, we had the highest Cambridge test score in the nation.
Wow. Great.
By an individual at, by a young man, I should say, at Estero High School. These students get to go and they get their Cambridge diploma, but they also get to take courses at Florida Gulf Coast University or FSW, so they're earning college credits while they're still in high school. I want to talk a little bit about the extracurriculars. You all know that the girls' soccer team made it to the state finals. I was there for that game. I mean, that's a really big deal for Southwest Florida, because I want to say they're the first girls soccer team ever to make it to the state finals. I went to that game, and the other team was, oh my gosh, so good. Like, I want to say 2 of our players could have even played for that team. When the game was over, the other team all ran to the bench and got the flag of the country from which they originated, and ran around the stadium wearing. In other words, there was a lot of recruiting from other countries going on. And so there's no way for a program like Estero to compete with something like that, because we don't break rules. We don't recruit. We do the right thing. Those kids were amazing, though. You know, the thing is, when I went through that line and I shook their hands and I gave them their second place medals, they were happy. They were happy to be there. They got it. They understood this was a once-in-a-lifetime experience, and they will take the positivity of that experience with them for the rest of their lives. So it was really a phenomenal to watch them. And then the second thing is, I know Estero High School girls softball is doing really well right now. I want to say that they're district champs. I'm sorry?
They're in the Final Four, but they got beat.
Oh, they did. That's okay. They got to the Final Four. That's awesome. And Fort Myers girls are really hard to beat. They're really hard to beat. So they've had quite a bit of success as well. Those are the positives that are going on in our schools. I can never have a room full of people and not mention the half-penny sales tax and the fact that our schools are overcrowded. We are putting together our final plans in terms of building schools, but we will have an elementary and a middle school in Estero by 2020. The construction will begin by 2020, regardless of whether we get additional revenue. If we don't get additional revenue from a sales tax, we're going to have to borrow more money, which leaves less money for maintenance, which I know I've talked about with this group a million times. But the other thing is that you know, those schools will be located in the Village of Estero. They will be located right here. It's not going to be a matter of a couple of schools in Fort Myers that are serving our students. It will be schools actually located here that will be helping our students. Does anybody have any questions about?
Any questions for Chris? We're running a little behind, so I'm going to thank you, Chris.
Okay.
Wonderful presentation. Just so important, and again, Chris's point there, the memorandum of understanding between the village and the school board calls for the village to have participation in the selection of those sites, that type of thing, and the public to have input. on that. But it's so important that the sales tax referendum be approved in order to have that money and not have to go out and borrow once again. They are already spending a good portion of their budget, their capital budget, on debt service. With that, we'll move on to Bob King and the Transportation Committee's report.
Thanks, Bob. I'll go through as quickly as I can, get the message out. Transportation needs and priorities for the Village of Estero and Lee County. Here we go. Last week there was a meeting of the Board of County Commissioners where there were some interim improvements to Corkscrew Road introduced. David Loveland and his group will implement those as quickly as they can. The remainder will go into the CIP for the county. The improvements are going to address, as it shows, that Corkscrew Road communities. The Lee County CIP workshop, the first one was held May 1st. The Tier 1 projects that would be funded for the year did not include Corkscrew Road again. However, there was discussion brought up by Larry Kiker, our representative, to look at what funding can be made available ahead of time by debt finance. It was mentioned earlier by David and by Councilman Wilson. Will be released next Wednesday. That will be followed then by, on the 5th and 7th of June, workshops where we'll have an opportunity to voice our opinion about the programs and the priorities. And I think it's extremely important that we participate in this process, because this is an opportunity for us to say what we think and what we want to see included in the plan. And my experience has been so far that the village and the county have been receptive to listening to what we have to say. So we need to participate. The county traffic study. Oops, let me back up to the previous one. As we've mentioned previously, there were some critical elements contained in the traffic study being conducted by the county. It's an environmental enhancement and preservation overlay, the traffic study. Item 6, task number 6, 7, or 6, 7, and 8 were not completed. And they're about a year behind schedule now. They're critical because 6 identifies the transportation improvement costs. Those costs are going to be a necessary element to go into the capital improvement plan. So those things need to be finished. According to the gentleman I spoke to, Andy Getch, by the end of this month, by the end of May, that information should be available and be presented. 7 is the environmental aspect of it, and 8 is the proportionate share analysis and identification of potential financing options. And I mention that because the proportionate share more or less has been established at about $1,600 a unit for those 4 developments that are being put out on Corkscrew Road. The potential financing options for borrowing money is interesting in that that would be an opportunity to implement sooner rather than later the larger improvements that are going to be needed to Corkscrew Road to accommodate the 4 communities that were identified. The fact that they're willing to consider that, I think, is very encouraging. And then proportionate share in those other funding sources can then pay back that funding so that we can see improvements sooner rather than later. The next Transportation Committee meeting will be on the 17th at Fine Mark Bank. I noticed in the announcement that was sent out that meeting is identified as 9 o'clock, and I'd like to correct that. The meeting will be at 9:30. We have met at 9 o'clock on 2 occasions to accommodate a request by the bank, but we're going back to our regular time in May. And at that meeting, we'll probably have our first opportunity to see the CIP and budget that will have been presented by staff to council the day before. So we'll hopefully have an opportunity to start to talk about that. Any questions? I know I banged through this kind of fast.
Any questions for Bob? Yes.
I don't have a question as much as I have a comment about the continuation budget process. We are looking at some issues with the county commission with regard to funding of student resource officers in our schools, specifically in Estero, Bonita Springs, and Fort Myers Beach. It is my understanding that school resource officers are, not school resource officers, we as taxpayers in Estero pay into the general fund. From that general fund, the sheriff's office determines how many officers are needed in Estero. That is based on acreage, population, and risk assessment. And we have been given 2 officers. What the county is proposing that they do is they take all of that money that's collected from all areas of Lee County, including municipalities, and use that money just to put school resource officers in the unincorporated areas of Lee County. And yes, so I want to make you aware of that as we go into this budget process at the county level, and perhaps I might be given an opportunity to
about speaking your part on yet another mine on Corkscrew Road. 2 weeks prior to that, the county staff report on Troyer Brothers will be issued. We'll be using that report from county staff to determine what our talking points are. Unfortunately, we have to wait until the mid-June before we can actually get that. That staff report usually approves, or I should say recommends, or recommends against the rezoning of that particular property. Since I've been here, county staff has always been basically recommending approval. The other thing that I'd like to talk about today is on May 15th, that's next Tuesday, we think the Board of County Commissioners at a workshop is going to be taking up the budgeting question for Conservation 2020 program. I say we think because they still haven't issued the agenda yet. It's less than a week away, and we don't know for certain that they're going to be talking about it. But it's very important that they be told by the residents of Lee County that Conservation 2020 is important. We'll be sending out an email alert probably today to our email list, asking our people on our list to send emails or call the county commissioners and tell them to fully fund Conservation 2020 so that it can undertake the many things that were required of it in the referendum back in 2016. While I'm here, I want to just recognize 4 individuals that are on our environmental committee. Donna Sutton, right there, if you just raise your hand. Mike Rulin, way in the back. Neil Scheffler, right here in the front. And Susan Prock. These 4 individuals, these are not the only ones on the environmental committee, but they have been just stellar helpers in the various activities that we've been involved with. That includes showing up at these hearings and talking about the various problems with the rezoning that's proposed, coming to our Conservation 2020 meetings at 6 Mile Cypress Slough, and helping us determine what we can do to get the county commissioners to undertake what they're supposed to be doing on the Conservation 2020 program. So thank you so much, and look forward to continuing working with you all for it. I just want to touch real quickly on the Sterol Stormwater Master Plan. This is just a snapshot. It is in its final throes right now. The village has these as project goals. I don't want to go into it too much right now. Completed tasks include regional and local scale hydrological modeling, that's computer modeling, and the next steps are these 5 or 6 right here. A lot of this work should be done by July 2018. I hope to be able to start seeing some of that report and coming back and reporting a lot on that to you here at this meeting. Our next meeting, mostly to talk about Conservation 2020, is next Thursday at 2 o'clock at 6 Mile Cypress. If you're interested in coming along, you really do, let me know. We usually carpool from Publix on Ben Hill Griffin, and we usually have a nice time out there. Thank you.
Any questions for Pete? Thank you. Moving right along, Jim Tutulis and the land development code changes and comp plan changes.
Okay, thank you, Ben. To make it fast, what happened was that when, before Estero was a village, all of the land use and all of the land planning and the comprehensive plans were out of Lee County. As soon as the village was incorporated, it was up to us to have our own comprehensive plan and our own land development plan. A year ago, we spent, the Planning and Zoning Board with the village staff put together the comprehensive land plan. We all discussed it, you all had your inputs into it. That was presented to the council. The council presented it to Tallahassee, and as Councilman Wilson said, that was, we're waiting to get that approved by June 1st. Is that what you're looking for? Right, so if that gets approved, then the next step is the comprehensive plan tells you, well, we'd like to have, you know, multifamily over here, residential here, commercial here, in a broad picture. That's just the scope of where we'd like it to go. But now we have to refine it further, which is the land development plan. If it says, for instance, that there's going to be commercial, the question is, are we going to have a 5-story office building limitation, or 2-story, or 3? So the land use development plan specifically pinpoints what you can do within the areas. How much parking ratios are you going to have for apartment units? How much parking spaces do you have to have for commercial, and the height limitations, the bulk limitations? Those are the things that we'll be discussing. And once again, we look forward to having all the community come in.
One more time, here's your last chance. The Village with a Vision license plate card.
2 for $5?
2 for $5. It'll cost you $10 to buy all 4 that I have left. So they are over here, your way out, throw in your $2.50, or whatever Mark has worked it down to.
Don't laugh. I have one on a white car and people have stopped me and go, where's that?
Well, here's your chance to.
I have it on my car, I'm just saying the way.
Okay, this will not be open at the next meeting. And then you'll have to see Linda then.
Thank you, Bob. Any final comments for the good of the community? Yes.
Regarding the certificate of need for Lee Health, June 1 is when they make the decision if it will be approved or not. Is there any effort that'll happen at Tallahassee?
Yes.
Is there any presence needed there?
Not at that point. As Joyce indicated, the decision about which hospital will be approved, whether it be the HCA hospital or the Lee Health Hospital, that decision will be made on June the 1st, and it's subject to appeal. There's an appeal process. It's likely to be appealed no matter what they decide. So keep tuned. We'll be working closely with Alex and Suzanne and others to try to make sure that we're taking the next steps. I've been asked by Lee Health to write a letter